Jacksonville, this is the Florida Republican presidential debate. It's now time to welcome the 2012 Republican presidential contenders. Joining us on stage, Texas Congressman Ron Paul. Massachusetts Governor.
I am Ron Paul. I'm a congressman from Texas, 12 terms. I am the champion of a sound monetary system, a gold standard as it is under the Constitution, and a foreign policy based on strength, which rejects the notion that we should be the policemen of the world and that we should be a nation builder. We need...
All right, let's start with a question from the audience.
Hello. Can you tell me what specific actions you'll take to address the costly consequences of illegal immigration while preserving the rights of those who seek to immigrate legally?
All right, Congressman Paul, you're from Texas, the state with the longest border with Mexico. Is this a viable option, what we just heard?
Well, to talk about it, but I don't see it as being very practical. I think it's a much bigger problem. You can't deal with immigration without dealing with the economy. The weaker the economy, the more resentment there is when illegals come in. If you have a healthy, vibrant economy, it's not a problem. We're usually looking for workers. Even under today's circumstances, a lot of businesses are looking for workers and they don't have them. They're not as well trained here. But also, the way we're handling our borders is actually hurting our economy because the business people, visitors have a hard time coming in. I mean, we don't have a well-managed border, so I think we need more resources, and I think most of the other candidates would agree we need more resources, but where are the resources going to come from? I have a suggestion. I think we spend way too much time worrying about the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Use some of those resources on our own border.
Speaker Gingrich, you had an ad, but you pulled it this week, in which you described Governor Romney as the most anti-immigrant candidate. Why?
Yes, good evening. The U.S. has been largely away in its foreign and trade policy with Latin America. In the meantime, Iran and China have been increasing their influence over and involvement in Latin America through the leftist and left-leaning governments. What would each of you do as president to more deeply engage in Latin America and, importantly, to support the governments and the political parties that support democracy and free markets?
Congressman Paul.
Well, I think free trade is the answer. Free trade is an answer to a lot of conflicts around the world, so I'm always promoting free trade. And you might add Cuba, too. I think we'd be a lot better off with Cuba, trading with Cuba. So I think the more you can do to promote this free trade, the better off we'll be. But as far as us having an obligation, a military or a financial obligation to go down and dictate to them what government they should have, I don't like that idea. I would work with the people, encourage free trade, and try to set a standard here where countries in Central America or South America or any place in the world would want to emulate us and set the standards that we have. Unfortunately, sometimes we slip up on our standards and we go around the world and we try to force ourselves on others. I don't think the nations in South America and Central America necessarily want us to come down there and dictate which government they should have. And yet, I believe with friendship and trade, you can have a lot of influence, and I strongly believe that it's time we have friendship and trade with Cuba.
Senator Santorum, are you with Congressman Paul?
No, I'm not with Congressman Paul, and I'm not with Barack Obama on this issue. Our policy of Iran now, in Venezuela and in other places, and Cuba and in Nicaragua, the threat of radical Islam growing in that region, it's absolutely important for us to have a president who understands that threat and understands the solution is closer ties. I will visit that area of the world repeatedly to solidify those ties when I become president.
Let me let Congressman Paul quickly respond.
The senator mentioned standing up for some of these nations, but he doesn't define it. But standing up for nations like this usually means that we impose ourselves, go and pick the dictators, undermine certain governments, also sending them a lot of money. It doesn't work. Most of the time this backfires. They resent us. We can achieve what he wants in a much different way than us using the bully attitude that you will do it our way. This is not a benefit to us. And besides, where are you going to get the troops and where are you going to get the money? Because you're talking about force. And I know of a much better way than using force to get along with people.
I don't know where...
Because we need to get away from those gigantic systems.
Let me bring Congressman Paul, then Senator Santorum. Quick follow-up question to you, but specifically, it seems that they both acknowledge they both made money from Fannie and Freddie. Should they return that money?
That subject really doesn't interest me a whole lot. But the question does. The question is, what are we going to do about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? It should have been auctioned off right after the crash came. It would have been cleansed by now. It should have been sold. But maybe it's my physician background, but I think an ounce of prevention is what we ought to talk about, so we quit doing this. But we know how the bubble came about. It was excessive credit, interest rates held too low, too long. The Federal Reserve responsible for that. Community Reinvestment Act, which is affirmative action telling banks they have to make these risky loans. At the same time, there was a line of credit which allowed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to, to make more money, and it was assumed that they would always be protected. Now, you can't argue. I've talked a long time about cutting off that credit from the Fed. I was trying to prevent this stuff. Also, I opposed Community Reinvestment Act, as well as I had legislation in 10 years before the bust came to remove that line of credit to the Fed, to the Treasury. So,
Senator Santorum, Romney, after he released his taxes, you said that you were satisfied with the level of transparency of his personal finances when it comes to this. And I just want to reiterate and ask you, are you satisfied right now with the level of transparency as far as his personal finances?
Well, you and I have a great relationship, Ms. Beck, a long way. I'm with him. This is a nonsense question. The four of us agree for the rest of the evening. We'll actually talk about issues that relate to governing America.
Mr. Speaker, you made an issue of this week when you said that he lives in a world of Swiss bank and Cayman Island bank accounts. I didn't say that, you did.
I did, and I'm perfectly happy to say that on an interview on some TV show, but this is a national debate where you have a chance to get the four of us to talk about a whole range of issues.
But if you make a serious accusation against Governor Romney like that, you need to explain that.
You want to try again? I mean,
wouldn't it be nice if people didn't make accusations somewhere else that they weren't willing to defend here?
Okay. All right. Well, given that standard, Brett.
That there may be some who try and make a deal of that, as you have out publicly. But look, I think it's important for people to make sure that we don't castigate individuals who've been successful and try and, by innuendo, suggest there's something wrong with being successful and having investments and having a return on those investments. The Speaker, you've indicated that somehow I don't earn that money. I have earned the money that I have. I didn't inherit it. I take risk. I make investment. Those investments lead to jobs being created in America. I'm proud of being successful. I'm proud of being in the free enterprise system that creates jobs for other people. I'm not going to run from that. I'm proud of the taxes I pay. My taxes plus my charitable contributions this year, 2011, will be about 40%. So look, let's put behind this idea of attacking me because of my investments or my money, and let's get Republicans to say, you know what you've accomplished in your life shouldn't be seen as a detriment. It should be seen as an asset to help America.
Mr. Speaker, I'm ready to move on if you are.
What?
I said I'm ready to move on to the next subject if you are.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to simply say, it would be nice if you had the same standard for other people that you would like applied to you and didn't enter into personal attacks about personal activities about which you're factually wrong. So I would be glad to have a truce with you. But it's a two-way truce.
I'm happy on any occasion to describe the things that I believe with regards to the Speaker's background. We'll probably get a chance to do that as time goes on.
Mr. Speaker, explain why you think that the money that he made over these many years, recent years, under your tax, hold on, Mr. Speaker, under your tax plan, we're talking about taxes right now, this is substance. Under your proposed tax plan, he would pay zero taxes. Explain that.
Oh, it depends on whether the particular kind of payments he made were counted under that plan as capital gains or whether they're counted as regular income. But even as regular income, he'd pay about the same fees to get things done.
All right, we're going to move on, but go ahead, Ron Paul.
A quick comment. Because Newt's mentioned this quite a few times about balancing the budget for 4 times. I went back and looked at the record. The budget was, the national debt during those 4 years actually went up about $1 trillion. What he's talking about is he doesn't count the money he takes out of Social Security. So Reagan nor you had a truly balanced budget because the national debt goes up and that's what we pay the interest on. So I think you've stretched that a little bit more than you should have.
Go ahead and respond to them, Senator Centro.
No,
you want to respond to Congressman Paul?
I would just say, under the system that was used, we were $405 billion in balance for 4 years. I agree with Ron, but let me finish. I actually agree with you, and I propose that we take Social Security off budget. So no president can ever again threaten, as Obama did in August, that he would not send the check out. And you could set Social Security back up as a freestanding trust fund. It does have enough money, and you could, in fact, pay the checks without regard to politics in Washington.
Go ahead quickly. Ronald Reagan, as far as the tax rates, as Senator Santorum has suggested, Congressman Paul?
No, he taxed too much. My goal is to get rid of the 16th Amendment. And the only way you can do that... The only way you can do that is not run a welfare system and a warfare system and policing the world. But I do want to address this subject about taxing the rich. That is not a solution. But I understand and really empathize with the people who talk about the 99 and the 1, because there's a characteristic about what happens when you destroy a currency. There is a transfer of wealth from the middle class to the wealthy, and this has been going on for 40 years. So the middle class is shrinking, they're getting poorer, and they're losing their jobs, and they're losing their houses. But Wall Street isn't getting poorer, and they are the ones who are getting the bailout. So we have to address the bailout and the system that favors a certain group over another group. If you don't have sound money, and if you have a welfare state, no matter whether the welfare state is designed to help the poor, you know, the welfare system helps the wealthy. And there has been this transfer of wealth. So if we could stop all of these transfers to the wealthy class, but the solution isn't to tax the wealthy. If you give an honest product and the customers buy that product, you deserve to keep that money and earn that money. But there's a big difference between those who earn money and those who rip us off through the government and the monetary system.
Congressman Paul, you're a physician. You're 76 years old. You would be the oldest president of the United States if you were elected. Are you prepared to release your medical records so voters out there know what your health is?
Obviously, because it's about 1 page, if even that long. But I'm willing to challenge any of these gentlemen up here to a 25-mile bike ride any time of the day in the heat of Texas. And you know, that subject has come up, and sometimes in fun, but sometimes not in fun. But, you know, there are laws against age discrimination, so if you push this too much, you better be careful.
I raised the question because you remember 4 years ago, the same question came up with John McCain, and he released his records finally. I remember our own Dr. Sanjay Gupta spent hours reviewing those records. So let me go down and ask all of you, are you ready to release your medical records?
Happy to do so.
I'm happy to, and I also want to attest, I'm confident that Dr. Hall is quite ready to serve if he's elected. Watching him campaign, he's in great shape.
Thanks, Newt.